My name is Liz Loomis, and I've had the pleasure of serving on the Convention Planning Committee for this year's conference. And I also have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker, who is Chief Brenda Rodgers, to my right. Chief Rodgers began her fire career as a volunteer with Yakima County Fire District 11. Realizing her passion for the fire service and serving the public, she pursued a full-time career in 1992 with Richland Fire and Emergency Services in Washington. Chief Rodgers was their first female firefighter, working her way up through the ranks of lieutenant, captain, and battalion chief. Chief Rodgers has obtained technical skills in paramedicine, community risk reduction, health and safety, hazardous materials, wildland, and community relations, and currently is a member on the Southeast Washington All Hazards Type 3 Incident Management Team. During her education, she attended the National Fire Academy and received a paramedic certification from Central Washington University, and her bachelor's degree in fire administration from Eastern Oregon University. While rising through the ranks, she was one of many that thrived on creating a more inclusive and positive environment, influencing a cultural change. This organizational transformation started as a rank and rules-bound culture to one of empowerment and servant leadership. This change has brought about diversity, gained political equity, become a sought-after organization, and is gaining national recognition through its EMS delivery model. Would you please join me in welcoming Chief Brenda Rodgers?
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I'm hoping to share some of my experiences today on diversity and how it may help you in your organization. A lot of what you heard, if you attended the previous session, a lot of it you'll hear me echo, and that's been really successful in our organization. So when I hired on with Richland back in '92, so 31 years ago, it was a different time for sure, and we had one other minority on the organization at that time. So he ended up moving on within his first year of service, and we ended up hiring our second female to replace him. So a year after I had started. Then we went 21 years before we got our next female firefighter, and then it was 22 years before we got our next minority. And let me tell you, it was all about the culture. So you'll hear me also talk about the culture. So we're going to talk a little bit about what makes up a diverse workforce and why it's important to have diversity and what you can do to increase it, and some processes. We're very process oriented. We've tried to do the ready, fire, aim, and it didn't work. So first of all, let's go through what makes up that diverse workforce. So many people are just stuck on the demographics. And when you narrow down into the demographic side and not be inclusive of what diversity really is, it's going to minimize your efforts and really diversify in your organization. So when we're looking at diversity, make sure you take a look at the skill set that somebody will bring. So those experiences that people are bringing to the table are just as important as having diversity in demographic size. Everybody processes things a little bit different, so that too is part of diversity, and we don't want everybody to be robots thinking everything the same way. We want people to come about things a little bit differently, different perspectives. So once again, diversity is inclusive of all three of these things. Make sure that you don't lose focus of that, because if you start honing down on just the demographic side, you're going to cause resentment within your organization. And I know for me and my experiences, when I hired on, it was about 50-50 on the excitement of having a first female firefighter in the service. There was a lot of lip handshakes when I got there, and then there was some that were excited about, hey, this is something new and different. Let's see what it's all about. After they understood what my motives were, and it wasn't to put my foot down and say, hey, I'm the first female. It was the passion to serve just like many others did. It brought about a lot of credibility and understanding. So what's today's workforce looking for? This was talked about in the previous one, and that is people are wanting to be inclusive and bring about equity. So with the equity and stuff, people just want that opportunity to perform. So give them that opportunity. Like I said, for me, I just wanted to be there for the passion of the service and not to be a statement. So most people, this is what they're wanting to do, and realize it's just equity and inclusion. So what is your why? It's important to ask your why before you start going down that path. Make sure you're doing it for the right reason. Some people are like, oh, well, we better start going out for diversity because I'm in fear of a lawsuit. It could be attempted to be doing your thing. It could be a diversity initiative, reflective of your community, or recognize the benefits. Understand what your why is before you go out, and make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. Once again, you're going to bring about resentment within your organization if you don't preface it with the right reasons. Then the culture. This is the biggest thing there is the culture aspect. Just like with diversity, or just like with the culture of the rules bound, you need to have more of an inclusive thought process on the culture portion of it. It's important that you first bring about the inclusive part of it, and then people realize that oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought. It speaks to the whole thing of doing it for the right reasons. Like I said, if you don't set it up and ask them to support what your motives are, then you're going to get yourself in trouble. The barriers, we all know that there's barriers and biases that are brought about, and those can be an implicit bias, and those implicit biases can be hardwired into your DNA and your upbringing and stuff. So you have to make sure that you take a look at yourself and look at the culture and find out where are the implicit biases at, and if there's some changes that you can make to make it friendly for all. So there's a lot of benefits with a diverse workforce, and these are some of the things that I captured looking at what we've seen in the last few years. So like I said, it was 21 years before we had our next female firefighter after the second one in 22. So in the last 8 years, we've been able to increase our diversity numbers by 5 females now, and we've got 8 minorities. So just in the last 8 years, we've been able to increase them. And these are some of the things when I was preparing for this. This is the things that I saw in our workforce. So we've seen increased creativity and innovation and a wider skill set and talent pool, new variety of perspectives. And I think we're seeing that in the fire service in general with all the different host techniques, handling techniques, and how you do forcible entry. It used to be made up of brute force 30 years ago. That was part of the concern, is whether or not a female could actually do the job and be physical, have enough physical. I had to take the same physical standard as the guys did, but it still didn't alleviate their concerns. So now that we have the standardized testing, everybody's on the same playing field. They have an understanding what they're coming in with, but that brute force is not nearly as important as what it was years ago, because so much of the techniques are it's all simple techniques, and it takes about half as much force as it used to. But there's been better decision making. We're seeing community respect. People are really shocked. On my shift, I have 2 female firefighters, and I have them at the same station. So sometimes it's kind of funny to see them show up, and the looks on somebody's face that, wow, you've got 2 females and 1 male on one crew, and it's kind of funny because I don't think twice about it. And, sometimes the perception's still out there that there's a lot of males. So, and you're going to see the positive hiring results. Like I said, we've increased our numbers a lot in the last 8 years just on being inclusive. And it's going to demonstrate the value to your people. There is a legal side of it. I'm not going to dive down into the legal side. I did this more for my son because he's a practicing lawyer down in Phoenix, and recognize that there is a legal side. Make sure that as long as we're treating everybody inclusive, there's not going to be any concerns. So let's change our focus to recruitment, and this is where there's going to be a lot of parallels with the previous talk, and that is, what is the message that you're sending out when you're doing recruitment? Are you being inclusive? Are you looking at the demographic side? How are you extending past your organization? So much of it's going to be by diving down into your community and getting those community interactions. A lot of people have never even thought about being in the fire service, but after, if you're in the community doing things and where they could see it and be involved with it, different community events where they get to see you pull hose and stuff, or have the opportunity to do it themselves, or invite them into the station so they can see what you're about. It's a different mindset, because a lot of people that I've talked to within my organization had no idea that they would be pursuing a fire service career until they had somebody make that contact with them. One of our minorities was worked in an ER as an ER tech, and one of the fire guys is like, hey, have you ever thought about a job in the fire service? And he's like, no, what's it about? So all those different community interactions that you can have. One of our females was going through school to do sports medicine, but being out on the field at the football games, the interaction with the EMS was what engaged her in that. So it's all about being out in the community. So what does your culture say about you? Is your culture inclusive, and would it be set up for a minority? This is where our department really failed. When I came into the department, they didn't set them up for success. All they did was say, take all the girly magazines out of the station and have at it, here she is. And there was a lot more learning. They didn't give them an opportunity to ask questions on their behaviors or what the expectations were or anything else, and it was driven with a lot of resentment amongst the crews because they didn't have that buy-in. So you got to set your culture up ahead of time before making that switch. And are you going to have systems challenges? Some people have. For us, we have a PR department that we can do marketing with them. Some of the smaller departments, they're on their own, but it's all about the connections. And if you have questions, ask your neighbors and find out what those changes are. So in recruitment, you got to look at your systems. Every time that you put an experience, an EMS requirement, or certifications on there, that's going to narrow your job pool or your candidate pool for diversity. And that is because a lot of you don't have, you're really at the whim of whoever's doing the EMS certification. So if they're not looking for diversity and doing an EMT program, you're kind of at their whim. And if career departments are getting it from a volunteer organization, what does it look like that they're doing for capturing the biggest pool? So, and then same with the certifications. If you require IFSAC firefighter 1 or firefighter 2. That's just that many more barriers to getting a larger candidate pool. And when I when I was promoted to battalion chief, I spent my first 3 years on the administration side, which I was tasked with recruitment, entry-level hiring, and promotional testing. And this was one of the things that we saw a lot of challenges with. To begin with, at that point, we would hire, or we use public safety testing, so the percentage for the written test, and then we would give additional points for whether or not you're a paramedic or if you had IFSEC firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and hazmat ops. And then if you had a degree, we'd get points. So what we were doing is we were capturing people that were good test takers. We had people that had been in the fire service for a long time, but not necessarily a good blend for our culture. And so we kind of revamped some of that. Given us a larger candidate pool, opening up some opportunities for people, it was all about getting the culture right, fit for our department, and not necessarily chasing certifications and stuff. So whether or not you have an internal or external recruitment process, that can vary some of your, how far reaching you are. Like I said, the biggest thing is your people being championed out into the organization. The budget funding, most of us don't have very good budgets for that, and the cheapest way is being involved in your community. So I'm going to show you a couple of quick videos, and what I'd like you to do is just kind of think about how they make you feel and whether or not you feel that they're inclusive. While we're waiting for that, what I want to do is show you a compilation of some traditional recruitment videos that you normally see, and then in contrast with how we're sending out videos. And neither one are right or wrong. It's we just take a little bit different approach. And the most important thing about sending out videos is when I went on YouTube to find them, I just randomly grabbed some off of there. But there's some videos that are on there that are anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes. I don't know anybody that has an attention span nowadays to watch a video for 7 to 10 minutes. So the two that I did find, which were hard to find, they were 30-second clips, which I think is a lot more appropriate. But consider that what you're trying to say in that message and whether or not it's inclusive or the values to your organization. Does it really speak to you? So since we don't have the videos yet, we'll just continue on. And these are stills taken off of one of those traditional videos versus the stills from videos from our department. And you can see that they're pretty drastic contrasts between the two. And not that, like I said, not that anyone's right or wrong. It's just different. We're very community driven, and that's our focus. So that's the contrast there. We've started, as you can see up there on the top, a reading program that has gained us all sorts of community equity. The school district is probably the 5th or 6th largest employer in our city, and they are very far-reaching. So what we did is, based on community risk reduction, and we took the school district that was most challenged social-economic wise and could get the biggest benefit from that, and we started a reading program with that. Some of our city fair stuff, but that community engagement. So then we took a systematic approach. Like we heard earlier today, you have to have a purpose, a mission. Um, so you got to come up with your purpose, whatever approach you're looking for, particularly in developing equity. And then a vision, a goal, an outcome, transition, action, results, and improve, review and reprove, review and improve. So what we'll do is we'll break down each one of these, and I'll tell you a little bit about what we did and how we got there. So we built a foundation built on purpose. So like I said, very rules bound to begin with, not very inviting environment for people to work at. It was very much regimented that you came in and you did your job, you didn't buck the system, and we decided, nah, that's not working for us, so we better create a better purpose. And our purpose for Richland is protect and enhance quality of life, and then we want to grow that organizational value within the community. We want to be able to go to the community and say, hey, we're more than a fire department. What would you like out of us, and what value can we bring to the community? For our vision, we are community-driven, customer-focused, competition-ready. That is our vision on keeping us moving forward, and we've sought out to be the best-in-class delivery model in cardiac resuscitation. That is a very heavy lift, but we've partnered with Zoll, and we've got some really good numbers, and we're willing to challenge our numbers with any other industry and influence the industry. Got to set goals. Ours is based on number of lives saved annually. So last year, I think we had 18, and we look for not just life saved, but quality of life that's saved. So 14 of those 18 have a CPI score of 1 or 2, which means they're people that are normal functioning, back out into the community, able to take care of themselves, don't need help bathing and those everyday tasks, so they're on their own. And then the property value saved. Most people look at property loss and not saved. For us, we look at it a little bit different, and we want to know the value saved. So if we have a $500,000 structure and $50,000 worth of damage, we want to go back and say, hey, our force did such a good job, they were able to confine it and contain it to the area of origin, and only had $50,000 damage, so we've saved $450,000 worth of property for them. And then making sure that you're measuring your outcomes. So, like I said, we want to know the lives and property saved so we can come back and change things if not meeting it. And then based on community initiatives engagement, so every one of our programs, we do a systematic approach, and we want to make sure that we're bringing value to the community and make sure that we're reinforcing that community focus. So this is the transition document. Like I said, you have to set up the culture for it. And what we did was similar to what we heard earlier, and that is on those character traits at the bottom on the red document, we polled everybody on the organization, and this started, well, it was about 2004 that the city decided they were going to go to a values-based organization. And during that transition, they decided to just grab the binders and take them and throw them in the trash, and said, let's really put our mouth, let's really show them that we mean business. And so they threw the policy manuals out. I don't recommend anybody throw policy manuals out. That was not a good thing for us at all, but we adapted and slowly brought those back. But that focus of being in the community, or being the values base, was huge. We had a couple of our battalion chiefs go back to be part of the EFO program at the NFA, and so they brought back community risk reduction. And so we started slowly going that path, and that path was really the catalyst for change within our organization. 40% of us went back to the National Fire Academy and went through community risk. So that's kind of our foundation on changing our culture. And with that, I had the pleasure of going back with our city manager, which was the first time a city manager had ever attended the National Fire Academy, which I found hard to believe for that many years that the Fire Academy had been going on, that they were able to make that statement. But it was an incredible one. So we hammered out the character traits on what we wanted for that, how we wanted our people. So that is our foundation for recruitment. So when we're doing recruiting, we look at those character traits, and if they don't meet those character traits, they're not even considered for recruitment. So what we do with our entry level now, like I said, everything's been an evolution. We started out a process of doing those higher numbers and capturing the top performers that on testing, and we decided that's not fitting into our culture. So what we made the change, several evolutions, but today's change is we do 70% and above. Anybody that is captured in that 70% above on that public safety testing, and that gets them a speed interview of 10 minutes, and we're looking for these during that speed interview. And if we can capture those character traits and they look like a good organizational fit for us, they move on to an oral interview and then a chief's interview. The expectations document, we had to hold somebody hold us all accountable to something. That was the same thing. We had buy-in from the organization for that transitional piece by everybody sitting down. How do we want to hold people accountable? And then we went on the strategic goals. So those are all internally focused, and the blue document is, okay, how are we going to get us there? That's our vision, and so City Council sets the areas of focus and the strategic priorities before we do any program. It's got to meet those. And this document has been an evolution and has really brought about cultural change that has allowed us to get the minorities to apply for it. Our latest one, basically, it was just an incredible story. So we just opened a 5th station and preparing to open a 6th. And this minority actually came and interviewed citizens in our city, and then went on to interview other departments. We thought it was incredible how much homework he did on our department, and that's what you're seeing out in the workforce today. The workforce is getting a lot more picky because they can be. When I hired on, like I said, I tested amongst several hundred people, and that was 30 years ago when people were testing. It was 1 or 2 positions, and it was really competitive to get on. And now, whether it's in the fire service or out anywhere in the civilian, look at what it's like trying to get workers to come to work right now. So it's definitely a little challenging. So whatever you can bring to the table. And so then you got to look for the results in your program when you're bringing about change. So this is a picture that's captured from our celebration of life. Like I said, we've did a continuum of care program for the medical side. So it was with Pulse Point and became a heart safe city. So what we do is we stole this from, I believe it was 12th Valley. They do a similar program. But everybody that was involved with the continuing care after cardiac arrest, so if there was bystander CPR, if there was first responders like PD or something, everybody that was involved in it, we bring them to these, of course this is pre-COVID, and we shared their story, and it was by far the most heartfelt thing I'd seen in my whole career. It was just incredible. But it will bring your system to life if you have something that they're willing, or that they could see that there's results from your system. So I think we all can attest to wanting to be a part of something bigger. And then you can't forget to review and improve your system. It's going to impact those that are involved in it and help bring value to your system. There's going to be challenges along the way. Most of this is going to be at the leadership level and the culture that they have set up for it. Depending on the amount of resources that you got, it could impact how big of a program they have, and the implementation, how well it's implemented, is going to be a big factor. And don't consider anything without having a sustainable program. The key here is a culture with equity and inclusion definitely is going to get you the diverse workforce. I'm sorry about the videos not working, because the videos had the biggest impact of everything, and like I said, they worked when we tried it out prior to starting. So, all right, do you have any questions? I appreciate your time. Sure.